Welcome to Speak the Truth and Love, a Clint Day from St. Simon's Island, Georgia, on WCGA 1100 AM, where we do speak the truth in love based on Ephesians 4:15. In today's woke PC culture, there are many forces that want to stop free speech, especially for people of faith. Good men and women must be willing to stand up for their faith and be the salt and light to preserve our freedom. True freedom comes from faith in Jesus Christ. In John 8:32, God's word says that truth will set you free. Today, I'd like to welcome your friends. I'd like to welcome a good friend, Amanda Ashworth. Amanda, it's great to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Very good. Well, Amanda, one of the reasons I want to talk to you is I know you're involved with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and I know it's important. You know, you watched the Super Bowl, and that was the most watched event in human history in America. It's just amazing the number of people that watched it. It was very interesting to me as even Patrick Mahomes was going to the end zone to get on his knee. He literally took off his helmet and was getting ready to get on his knees. The cameras immediately went away from him. Right. It was very interesting to me. And I know I go to a lot of Florida State football games, and it's very encouraging to me because for many years we didn't see this, but a lot of the team will go to the end zone. Mm-hmm. They'll get on their knees, they'll pray. Our quarterback was a great example for that. He was injured in the Florida State season, and he was one of those that he kept his faith, kept believing God. God has a plan. He would say that, vocalize it. So I'm really excited seeing more and more athletes doing that. And even the owners of the Chiefs are committed Christians. Yeah. And that's one reason I wanted the Chiefs over San Francisco, because the owners, the team that owns it. And so I'm very encouraged by what God is doing among athletes. And I know you are too, and that's one of the reasons God led you there.
That's right.
Well, tell us the story of why you want to work with young ladies particularly. I know you work with anybody, but any athletes, but mainly young ladies. Tell us why you think that's important.
Well, I think it's super important for these girls to have good examples in their lives, people who are just real and raw, and I am one of the realest people you'll ever meet. So I'm very relational, and I love teenagers. I love children, teenagers. I just love having relationships with them. So what better fit than to be able to get into the schools and bring them Jesus and love on them.
Absolutely, and that's a key thing. You and I both work in a church together, and your husband and you are a team with us too, teaching middle schoolers in our church. And I help lead sixth grade boys, and really to me, like a pivotal age was 7th to 8th grade. Back in those days, we didn't have middle school, and so I had a lot of setbacks going from 7th to 8th grade that really set me down the wrong projectile, if you will, through high school and early college. And so that's why it's so important to me, even teaching these sixth grade boys. And one of the things I've discovered is leading them is trying to, I can follow them through all middle school. And I like to see them kind of grow up in that process. And it's amazing to me, sixth grade boys, sixth grade girls, very similar. By the time most of them are in 8th grade, these young ladies are young ladies, and some of the young men are still pretty much kind of, they're really young men. I mean, these are young boys, if you will, but they're growing.
They are.
And it's amazing to me how that they change so much. I didn't really understand that as a young kid, right?
Right.
But I think it's so important that parents follow if there's setbacks, if something's happening, and all of a sudden they're A students, not wanting to go to school or whatever. So help us understand how you can help someone with that. Let's just say they're being bullied, or they're just, things are going on, their parents are getting divorced, something's going on. How do you help them through those things that are maybe causing them challenges?
Well, me personally, it's really about having a relationship with them and being somebody that they feel comfortable coming to and talking to about those things. And really, just through prayer and relationship with them, I'm able to really just help them, pray with them about that, and be just a soundboard for them to come through and talk to. That's the main thing, is they just need somebody to talk to and walk through that season with them.
Absolutely, in a safe place. And a lot of listening. I mean, a lot of listening.
A lot of listening.
Well, how can you help a mother that's maybe being challenged by their teenage girl, which we all have that.
Oh, yeah.
I had 3 daughters and 1 son, so there were times where they were a little more challenging than others.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how can you help someone that's going through that process?
Yeah, well, for me, and I like to tell a lot of parents this, I heard someone a few years ago, and this really changed how I even started parenting my kids, but rules without relationship equals rebellion.
Yes.
And so when I was able to get a hold of that and realize, and that really even goes in with our relationship with Jesus, when we have a relationship, all we hear is rules, 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 we're just going to rebel. Nobody wants a bunch of rules, but when we learn to have a relationship, we want to do good things. So with our kids, once I was my first child, we were super strict. Brian and I were just rules, strict. Like it's almost like there was nothing he could do right. We were on him about everything, and we lacked the relational part of it. We thought in that time we were doing the right things, and then when we had our second son, as he grew older, we really focused more on a relationship and started changing our thought process, because we just did it how it always been done, how our parents did it. And then once we realized, hey, we can have a relationship with them. We can be friends with our kids with boundaries. And so when we started doing that, it just changed the whole relationship changed. And then we noticed that it wasn't just our son, but his friends wanted to be at our house all the time. They were constantly at our house. And so one night we were sitting at the house, and the boys, they were like, Miss Amanda, you're the strictest of all of our parents. And I was like, I'm the most strict? And they were like, yes, you are. You're so strict. And I said, but look where you're at. Look whose house you're sitting in. You're at my house all the time. So it shows you that you want those rules and you want to follow them, but you also want this relationship as well. So I think that's a key part of parenting, is knowing that you can have a relationship with your parent, with your children, and not just be about rules. And then they want to please you. They want to be around you. They want to honor you when you have that relationship.
Absolutely. And of course, about the more children you have, the more lax you get.
That's right.
And the oldest one's complaining about it
yes.
the whole time. And I think that's funny. And again, that's why Jewish tradition gives the first child twice as much.
He probably wouldn't argue with that.
He was in that training period of the
that's
parents.
Right. That's right.
And
we apologize often.
Exactly. We want to do everything perfectly. And in our case, by the time the fourth child came, I remember going to Sunday school or church with a little one, brand new baby, bringing everything with you,
yes.
packed up and passed it back to the hilt. And by the time the fourth little baby came along, our little boy, maybe you had a diaper and maybe you had a bottle.
Maybe.
That was it.
Yes.
Maybe. And so anyway, it's amazing how you go through that. So when you talk about rules without relationship, help explain that to what people can, so they can better understand what you're talking about.
Yes. So rules without relationship. So if all I have is just rules for my kids and just constantly harping on them and just demand from them, that's not fun for anybody. But when I have a relationship with my children, we're open. We can talk about things. I'm not just going to have a knee-jerk reaction if something happens. I want to be able to stop and think about, okay, let's talk. I'm not cool right now. Let's just talk about this in the morning or talk about this in a few hours. And so I've learned to and still learning. I'm not perfect at this,
yes.
But, we have 4 children, so I'm still learning. I still make mistakes and have to apologize, and still think about mistakes that I made and have to go back and apologize to my kids to this day. So rules without relationship. No, we don't want to have all these rules and just no relationship with my kids. I want to be a safe place where my kids, not just my kids, but their friends, feel like they can come over. And I tell people a lot of times, I can remember coming home from work more than once, and there would be a car in my driveway, and it would be one of my son's friends, and they would just be sitting at the house waiting on me to get home from work. They knew where the key was. They knew how to get in. They knew it was always a safe place 24 hours a day. And they would just stop by because they needed to talk about something or tell me something they did. And so that relationship just opened up conversation constantly. Even if it was things that they did wrong, they were able to come to me and say, hey, I need to tell you that I did this. And we were able to sit and talk about it. So it just opened up. They wanted to do right for me because we had that relationship. So they didn't want to disappoint me.
That's so good. And I understand that completely too. Now, how about if a parent right now that's listening to us, again, has a child that's normally been doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. Now they're kind of getting wild. They're kind of sowing their oats, if you will. What would you suggest to them? I mean, you hear relationship, that's a very good advice,
yeah.
But what else beyond that?
Well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to pray for them.
Yes.
Take it to the Lord. And, obviously praying for them. But I would want to find out what has caused that. Like, if they're starting to go through a rough patch, talk to them. Have conversation with them. Has something happened that at school? Is something going wrong at school? Is something going wrong in your life? Are you dealing with depression? Just open up conversations and figure out what the root of that is. Because usually there's a root problem to something like that, especially if you've had a child who has done so well and then all of a sudden they're like you said, kind of getting a little wild, a lot of times there's something behind that. So I would just suggest to the parents to just make sure that they're open to have conversation with their child. And if not, find them a safe person to talk to. They may not want to open up to you, and be okay with that. Be okay with them having a safe person in their life, whether it's somebody at church, their FCA leader, whether it's, a pastor, a youth pastor, or somebody that works with them at their church. Have a safe person that your child can go and talk to.
Exactly. And I know you're saying the word safe.
Yes. Yeah.
That is so important, and sometimes that can be hard to find.
Right.
And sometimes we put them in environments we think they are a safe person,
Right.
and they turn out they really aren't.
Right.
Or they may be giving advice inconsistent with the Word of God.
exactly
I know,
right.
again, that when in my case, going to counseling, because I wasn't willing to do counseling until I was really in trouble a lot of times. And so when you sometimes send young people to counselor, the person may say, I'm a Christian.
That's
they go
right.
to XYZ church. In the South, it's politically correct to go to church.
Right.
You want to be able to say that 9 times out of 10. Some people don't care about it, but most people do want to be able to say that because they understand that's part of our culture here. But how do you make sure that person is safe?
Well, I think it's, if you ask them questions, ask them what they believe, and make sure that what they're believing lines up with the Bible and what the Bible has to say about those issues. I think it's okay to ask those people those questions and talk to them first, and then, tell them what's going on with your child and allow them to be able to speak into their life if they're lining up with your beliefs with the
Absolutely.
Bible. Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, but one thing I do want to come back and ask you again, if someone is getting off track, what are some other things that we can do to maybe try to help them bring them back? And if you have an example of someone that might have gotten off track and you were able to help, that's come back, no names, of course, but just a process of what you saw going in their lives.
Right.
This is Clint Day from Speaks Truth and Love on St. Simon's Island, Georgia with WCGA.